Hi, this is Greg Anderson. I'm the broker at RE/MAX Advisors West. I want to talk about a client that we had just a couple of weeks ago that we closed. It was a young buyer, had a great job with a big company. We can't tell you exactly who it was, but it's a big local company. And we entered into a contract for him to purchase a home, he and his wife. And one day he came in and 3/4 of the guys who worked in his department were let go, just like that. So he was sweating bullets, and he's in the kind of industry, he's a tech guy, so he was in the kind of industry where he'd get a job right away, but that could have really raised havoc with his transaction. And so what we ended up doing is we negotiated with the seller to close early while he still had a job. They had plenty of money to cover it if he did lose his job, so that wasn't an issue, but we made an arrangement for them to close on the property early. The dilemma was that the seller wasn't able to close on their house until a couple of weeks later. And so there's an instrument that allows us to kind of bridge that gap, and it's called a rent back or a holdback agreement. And a rent back, it's a seller's rent back. And so the way it works is we closed on the property, and then the seller effectively became a tenant in their own home until we had the close date. So there's some mechanical issues. There is a form that deals with it, and basically what happens is the seller actually does give a security deposit to the buyer to make sure, again, they don't have a kegger and trash the place because it's not their house anymore, technically. And then they pay a per diem to the buyer. It's usually equivalent to what the buyer's PITI is, divided by, however many days in that particular month, say 30 days. The utilities would continue in the seller's name because they're still in possession of the house. And then, of course, like always, you want to check with, if you were to do some type of an agreement like this, you want to make sure that you've checked with your insurance agent to make sure you're covered on both ends, whether you're a buyer or seller, from a liability standpoint, from personal property. I mean, insurance is one of those deals where it's incredibly expensive until you need it. Then you want to make sure you've got really good coverage. So, potential for problems, obviously, you want to make sure you're covered, and that's something we strongly advise people to do. But, the seller would get to continue to live in the property. They have use and enjoyment of the property. The buyer can't come in and start painting or doing any of that stuff while the seller's still there. And then at the end of it, there's a termination agreement where the seller agrees to vacate by a certain date, or there's an increase, an escalator built into the lease to kind of incent the seller to not hang around too long and stay in the property. So it's called an amendment to purchase agreement, seller's holdover possession agreement, or a rent back. And so it's one of these very specific tools that works amazingly well in very specific situations. Again, it's not something that, like the rent back agreement or the move-in agreement for the buyer, it's not something that you start with. It's not something people really want to do, but it is a tool that allows us to solve dilemmas if something were to come up on the transaction. As always, if you've got questions, please give me a call or send me an email. I'll be happy to dig way deep into this. But thanks again for watching. Have an awesome day.